Of all genres, horror films are infamous for using all manner of visual trickery and technical sleight of hand in order to get the right audience reaction. Not every trick horror filmmakers use is as easily spotted as the much maligned jump scare though. As whilst that one might be the final boss of the genre, there are all manner of behind-the-scenes secrets that go into making a film scary outside of gory set pieces and hideous monsters. From intentional mistakes to disconcerting soundscapes, let's take a look at what really goes into the Frankenstein's creation of horror movies then, shall we? I am the haunting apparition of Ash from What Culture Horror, and these are 10 subtle tricks horror movies use to scare you. 10. Intentional continuity errors. This one is a particularly interesting one, mainly because lazy directors can pull it off by accident and seem like horror geniuses after the fact. Nothing but respect, to be honest. For most films, continuity errors are minor missteps at best and slightly embarrassing mistakes at worst. Most viewers scarcely even notice a minor error, and of those who do, very few audience members would say an inconsistent background ruined their cinema experience. But from some horror filmmakers, continuity errors can become a mind game that makes you question everything you're seeing. This could even be as simple as a chair appearing and disappearing in the background between shots. A tiny detail which only an obsessive rewatcher would be able to single out, but which the viewer is subconsciously able to perceive without devoting their focus to it. This leaves them with an ineffable sense that something is off, a vague feeling the director subtly slips in. You only need to look at The Shining for the effectiveness of this one. 9. Infrasound. Another sneaky trick horror filmmakers can utilise against an unsuspecting audience comes in the form of not visual sleight of hand, but audio trickery instead. Infrasound is the term given to a series of noise frequencies which can be detected by humans, but isn't strictly speaking heard, as they're too low to be within human hearing range. So, how do you detect a sound without hearing it? Well, it is by feeling it in your very bones. The only natural occurrences of this phenomenon are sources of primal fear for humans, whether it's massive animals communicating, strong winds, or avalanches. As such, when sound mixers and technicians or musicians composing scores use infrasound, they can tap into this sensation without audiences ever knowing they're hearing a thing. And as for an example, Gaspar Noé admitted he used infrasound in the mix of his nightmarish movie Irreversible, to give the film its unforgettably intense and upsetting aura. Well, mission accomplished, Mr. No. 8. Subliminal imagery. Subliminal imagery is best described as that pesky, brief, one-frame shot that can't be properly perceived by someone watching. You know it's there, but it's shown so fast you've got to question whether you really saw it or not. When this was first discovered and discussed as a phenomenon, subliminal messages, both visual and auditory, were thought to be a sort of dark magic through which filmmakers could code secret messages about the Illuminati, and musicians could convince listeners to worship Satan or join the Navy. However, now that the initial hysteria surrounding it has died down, modern researchers are aware that the average person won't be convinced to call home by a subliminal message urging them to do so in a single frame of a film. What subliminal messages can do, though, is terrify viewers when they are slipped in during a feature film's runtime, particularly if they are lingered on for long enough that a canny viewer can actually single them out, as seen in The Exorcist's infamous Captain Howdy insert shots. 7. Long takes. Although long takes are often associated with a slow pace and a boring lack of action, particularly if they remain still for the whole time, there is an undeniable stress to watching something happen all in one shot. Things feel vaguely, ineffably wrong, even if it's just worrying about how many takes it took to get the perfect one in a single go. Just look at the films of David Lynch, and in particular 2017's Twin Peaks: The Return, to see this principle in intense, unsettling action. Those of us who spent summers indoors glued to TV screens have a subconscious idea of how a normal film should look, sound, and feel. But even casual viewers with real lives tend to notice technical mistakes in films, as there is an underlying expectation which hasn't been fulfilled when a scene fails to hit its marks. In horror, a scene stretching out longer than necessary leads a viewer to wonder what is going to happen, why it feels so slow, and what inevitable bang will come at the end of its long silence. 6. Uncanny Valley. Uncanny Valley is a term used to refer to the strange space in which non-human entities with human-like appearances are weirdly familiar in an unfamiliar way. Coined by a roboticist in reference to a trend they noticed in robot design, it's that moment when something becomes sufficiently human-like to no longer appear cute. It's an inherent wrongness that is deeply creepy, so of course, that is where horror comes in. slightly twisting and distorting the appearance of a regular human face, whether it's via a clown, a doll like Chucky, a clone, a double, or an android, results in a reflexive reaction of unease and discomfort as the viewer's brain struggles to contextualize what makes something so recognizable seem unfamiliar. Easy pickings, right? 5. Red lighting. This may be the least subtle secret, but even if the effect is pretty easy to see, the psychology behind it is still interesting. Many directors will use coloured filters over their lighting in order to imbue a scene with a certain mood or feeling. Blue tones give a scene a detached, cool sensibility, which is how the cast of Miami Vice were able to wear all that pastel linen while still seeming serious and edgy. Red light, however, creates an unconscious and intense reaction in viewers, signalling danger and excitement. As a result, scenes with no naturally occurring bursts of intense colour can be coated by a general red filter, and the finished film sequence will engender a natural shock response from the viewer. Just look at Beyond the Black Rainbow or even something like A Quiet Place for this one. 4. Dutch tilts. If you want disorientation and discomfort, then just skew the shot a bit. At its most blatant, the Dutch angle is used to show a character passing out or losing consciousness. But used more subtly, this odd angle has a vague and unshakable sense that the film's perspective is off. Dario Argento's classic Suspiria uses it to great effect, where odd angles warn the viewer that something is deeply out of place in the film well before the witches put their first in-person appearance in. However, that is not the only psychological trickery that lenses and angles can create for directors. High angles leave the viewer subconsciously feeling small and defenseless, whilst empty spaces in the frame lead the viewer to wonder what will appear there and build tension as a result. 3. Disfigurement and deformity. Uncanny Valley Part 2. So, we've looked at Uncanny Valley in terms of the inhuman becoming human, but what about the monsters that started off like us, or seem like they might be real humans beneath their terrifying appearances? From mutants to werewolves to vampires to zombies, why are viewers so much more afraid of subverted humanity than they are of, say, Godzilla and King Kong? Well, the answer to this one lies way back in infant psychology, and it's a developmental secret that every special effects maestro who has ever scared you senseless, from Stan Winston to Greg Nicotero to Tom Savini, is well aware of. During our development, humans begin to discern normal and abnormal facial structures in infancy. It's then that we can develop a fear of what the brain registers as distorted or otherwise abnormal faces. This, of course, has led to some dicey instances of offensive misrepresentation in the horror genre, wherein disfigurement in the likes of The Hills Have Eyes, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Wrong Turn is shorthand for amoral evil. 2. Nonlinear sound. This one isn't far from what it sounds like. Huh? Get it? Sounds like? Anyway, frequently found in nature, non-linear sounds are any with large and irregular wavelengths that stir up a sense of fear and unease in the human listener. Examples include women screaming and animal distress calls, both of which are sampled in the soundtrack of The Shining. That film in particular is really filled with these slick little tricks, so it's no wonder commentators have been able to convince themselves it's about literally everything. A 2011 UCLA study found that it was the use of these sounds in the film's score that caused such a universally unsettled reaction amongst filmgoers, even during relatively uneventful scenes. It's an effect few filmmakers have been able to quite match as well in the years since, but horror scores nowadays are filled with a plethora of non-linear sounds, and Harry Manfredini's infamous sample of a whispered ki ki ma 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 in the score of Friday the 13th remains one of the favoured examples. 1. Mirror images. Uncanny Valley Part 3. The third and final part of Uncanny Valley for horror filmmakers, mirrors and doubles crop up constantly in horror. Figures like Candyman and Bloody Mary appear through them, and characters are forever seeing their own reflections distort and change in them before their very eyes. And it goes without even mentioning that there's many characters who have seen a threat appear behind them as they shut their medicine cabinet. Mirrors are used so often as they are naturally sources of fear for people because of the limited human capacity for self-identification. The simplest iteration of this phenomenon is classic sleepover games like the aforementioned Bloody Mary, which use a psychological trick that relies on players focusing on their unchanging, unmoving reflection for long enough that the eyes begin to distort and subvert what they're seeing. That's why mirrors are so often the locus of scary scenes, as viewers have an innate distrust of the flat, two-dimensional unreality of reflections, and expect them to hide something sinister as a result. The more you know, eh? And that's our list. Which of these tricks got you? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. I've been Ash over on social media @AshMillman, and this has been What Culture. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and come back again soon for some more spine-tingling horror content. Thanks for watching.